This video is edited from home video footage filmed in November 1997 on a fact-finding mission of the New York State Labor Religion Coalition. All footage shown is typical of the conditions viewed throughout the region. The video was filmed in 3 border villages, Nuevo Laredo, Piedras Negras, and Acuna. Maquiladora means new way and refers to the factories that have grown up on the border area at an accelerated rate since the 1994 passage of the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. From the outside, the factories look for the most part modern, landscaped and well kept in the office reception areas. Work areas are much plainer. There's virtually no parking areas for employee cars, as most Mexican workers cannot afford automobiles. The owners of these factories are a who's of American industry. Since 1994, nearly 1/2 good-paying American manufacturing jobs have been lost to Mexico. Household corporate names like Alcoa with 10,000 workers, Chrysler, Caterpillar, Cooper Tire, DuPont, Ford, General Motors with 75,000 workers, Hallmark, Hasbro, Mattel, Rheem, Sunbeam, Oster, Robert Shaw, to name a few. NAFTA was intended to export jobs to Mexico in the belief that by raising Mexican standard of living, markets for U.S. goods would be created. At the onset of the trade agreement, the average Mexican maquiladora worker made $1 U.S. per hour. The average is now 77 cents per hour. While Mexico has strict labor laws, most are either ignored or invalidated by the trade agreements. Mexican law states that 10% of all profits must be paid to workers as profit sharing. However, the maquiladora factories are qualified as cost areas, not profit areas, as most virtually all finished products are exported. Mexican law states that workers with 1 year or more of service must be paid a substantial severance if their employment is terminated. They circumvent this by hiring workers on renewable 3-month contracts, thus enabling them to avoid the law. These 3-month contracts are illegal, but a common practice. In many factories, women must prove that they are not pregnant in order to have their work contracts renewed. These General Motor workers are typical of the maquiladora. You can see there are very few older workers, as the contracts of older workers are not renewed. This is the Rio Grande River. The Rio Grande serves as the U.S.-Mexican border for over 1,240 miles. Many of the maquiladora industrial parks create toxic discharge sites, like the ones pictured here, to carry manufacturing waste to the Rio Grande River. The smell in the vicinity of the waste sites we visited was overpowering and nauseating. Many in our party felt physically weakened after a short exposure to the fumes from these rivers of pollution. While Mexico has comparable environmental laws to ours, they are largely ignored. The toxic discharge sites pictured in this video are both upstream and a short distance from Nuevo Laredo's municipal water inlet. This blatant disregard of the environment affords Mexican factories a huge competitive advantage over American industries that must commit extensive capital to dispose of industrial waste. This is another example of the uneven playing field that makes it difficult for American industry to compete globally. Mexican authorities are well aware of these discharge sites, and in some areas, effluent has been found to have concentrations 275,000 times permissible limits. Areas shown in this video, the International Boundary and Water Commission found 19 toxic chemicals exceeding government standards, 7 toxic chemicals in fish tissue exceeding government limits, and toxicity tests have shown river water to have lethal effects upon test organisms. Both air and ground pollution were visible at this factory that makes manifolds for an American car manufacturer. Note the ground pollution visible. This colonia is located a short distance from the manifold factory and is inhabited by their workers. Note the groundwater pollution seeping up through the ground next to the shack. It's surprisingly similar in appearance to that observed earlier at the nearby factory. The poverty level in the border area is so poor that many children must go without shoes. The interiors of the shacks the Maquiladora workers call home are very modest, usually 2 rooms with a small propane stove for cooking. This family was fortunate. Their home is constructed with wood. The children were delighted with the modest trinkets we brought, as they have little. Mexican families that inhabit the colonia you are viewing are, for the most part, employed by a company that manufactures seat covers for the big 3 U.S. automakers. As you view the cardboard shacks that these families live in, it is important to remember these people are not unemployed. They are working for U.S. corporations doing work that used to be performed by U.S. workers. These homes are constructed from wooden skids. The corporations charge the workers 10 pesos per skid. They are nailed together and then stuffed with cardboard. Cinder blocks are a status symbol. If a Mexican Maquiladora family is lucky, they will have a wall or maybe even 2 made of block. Workers save and buy these blocks as they can afford them. As can be imagined, the insides of these homes are very basic. Note the crude electrical wiring and lights against the highly flammable cardboard ceiling. Also visible in these pictures are the many holes in the walls and ceilings. The border area experiences cold in the winter. It was in the low 40s the day these videos were filmed. Because these shacks have no central heating systems, families will start fires in their yards and carry the coals into the cardboard dwellings and place them on the dirt floors for heat. The potential for a fire is tremendous. It would appear that a strong wind or fire could wipe out a whole colonia. The cost of living in Mexico is very high in comparison to their American counterparts. For example, the average Mexican Maquiladora worker works 394 minutes to purchase a gallon of milk. The average U.S. auto worker can earn that in 11 minutes. A whole chicken would require 234 minutes for the Mexican worker and 4.5 for the American counterpart. A pound of sugar, 260 minutes for the Mexican worker, 8.4 for an American worker. The minimum wage for the Mexican border workers is 180 pesos per week, less than $22 U.S. 10,000 Mexican Alcoa workers make less in 30 years than the CEO of Alcoa received in 1 year. In this town, Piedras Negras, 2 cows are butchered per week for a population of 150,000 people. That's all the meat that is affordable. Workers told us that occasionally they can purchase a piece of meat. Water is obtained from community faucets located in remote spots throughout the colonias. Utilities are not provided as most colonias are not recognized by the government and do not appear on city maps. Has NAFTA worked? I think this young man could best answer that question.